You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm here today with Blanche and Jon Lowen of Surfside, who focus on marketing within a category that's a little more challenging than most, which is cannabis. So before we get into the other questions, why don't you guys give the backstory for what the catalyst was for you guys to go into this category and decide to take on the challenge? What was that catalytic moment that had you guys decide to start this?
Had some early clients in the cannabis vertical, and we saw that the cannabis vertical, there was a great opportunity in order to prove out the efficacy of our technology. And one key factor of that was that the data in the cannabis industry, the cannabis customer data, is super rich. And so it acted as a great kind of a great lead-in to being able to work with really deep, rich data sets that allowed us to really understand the cannabis consumer. And it was if we were able to solve something in this complex market, it really would allow us to kind of go into other markets in a much more kind of proven and defined way.
Great, thanks. And the obviously everybody's using data to inform their marketing. However, one of the headwinds that the entire industry is facing, and cannabis is no different, is the double whammy of iOS changing the ability for us to do device level targeting and device level tracking with the latest updates of iOS. And then we have the continued phase out of the third-party cookie, which has of course been missing in Safari for a long time and most of Firefox users. And now we've got the can got kicked down the road on Chrome a little ways, but we're still seeing the erosion of the cookie space with regards to one of the targeting levers that we have at our disposal. So how are you guys handling that? How has that impacted your channel and your business?
Yeah, so I think one of the good things is that it's affecting everybody in the industry, and that the outcome of this exercise is a net positive for the consumer, right? The reality is that consumers' data has been exploited, and they've probably been overshared and unaware of what data they've been sharing. So the industry as a whole needs to make a move to protect that. Now, where we see Surfside fitting into that ecosystem is because of our focus on first-party data, we're really not impacted to the same extent as a lot of other like intermediary vendors, in the sense of, we're not required to drop a third-party cookie in a third-party context all the time. Because we're working with first-party data, we're onboarding raw identifiers and then dropping a first-party cookie in a first-party context and using that to track and understand the customer journey. So none of the Chrome changes really apply to us. But then as it relates to Apple's change around iOS 15, again, it becomes more and more important for brands to build a relationship directly with the consumer. And that's really what Surfside helps facilitate. So where that connective tissue that goes in integrates into their e-com site, their point of sale, their CRM systems, and associates a complete customer profile based on all of those different systems. And it can identify weaknesses in your data strategy. So for instance, one of the biggest things in the cannabis space is that there's a lot of focus on loyalty programs, but a large number of transactions aren't actually tied to an individual consumer. So are there strategies that our clients can do at the retail level that help ensure that they're collecting the right information, the right consent signals, so that then it opens up more advanced marketing, advertising use cases downstream from that?
Great, thanks so much. Obviously, whether you call it a prudishness by certain channels or just a regulatory fear, you've got Facebook and Google both being quite restrictive in cannabis advertising, creating a headwind for brands. So what other opportunities are available for cannabis brands to reach consumers?
Yeah, like right now we see obviously the piece that we focus on is other publishers, other inventory outside of Facebook and Google. So there's a fair amount of publishers. We have access to north of 1 million different apps and sites that are compliant and also allowing that category. And so being able to reach people on other websites, other apps is still a capability, whether it's desktop, mobile, tablet, display, rich media, video, native, connected TV, out of home. Those are all still channels that you can work in. And I think that people really only focus on, oh, no Facebook and Google, so they assume that you can't advertise. That's just not the case. Historically, I know this, before programmatic or before digital started becoming a little bit more of a focus for a lot of the brands and the advertisers, it was really email marketing, SMS campaigns. It was other guerrilla marketing tactics that were used in order to advertise to their customers. But now we're seeing a lot of changes in the SMS regulations from the carriers that's made that even more difficult, where now digital might become and is becoming a lot more of a kind of primary channel for people.
Great, thanks. Your team had sent over some stats that, and I haven't validated them. You said that 37 states have legalized medical cannabis, and 18 states and Washington, D.C. have recreational cannabis. So that's a pretty big footprint. So what are the brands and dispensaries doing this holiday season to sort of take advantage of the increased level of legality for them to advertise?
Yeah, there's some interesting numbers around, like, cannabis has its own holidays that they celebrate, and they kind of put a lot of promotional pressure and a lot of effort into marketing and those cannabis holidays. But when we look at some of the sales data, the national holidays are just as strong. You know, when you talk about like July 4th or Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Labor Day, Memorial Day, those are all still really strong sales weekends. And so what we do is we make sure that all of our brands and advertisers and dispensaries, they know that those are also great opportunities to reach people who are going on vacation, are going to be outside, active, gone for the weekend, and are looking to make a larger purchase for, you know, them and friends. So as far as like how we approach it, there's really no differentiation between a cannabis product and other CPG or other, you know, products that sell well during the holidays, right? And it's just ensuring that people are aware of your product. Sometimes a promotion is tied to it as well, but it's a lot of like personalization and finding audiences that tend to take advantage of those holidays as well.
Right. Well, certainly the cynics in the audience would say, oh, I guess people need a little bit more medical marijuana at the holidays than they would on a regular week. But you know, clearly we could all just smirk it at that perspective. So you know, this November is 9 years since the first legalization of cannabis, so it's still fairly new. How has the industry evolved since then with regards to advertising, targeting, outreach? Has it taken its own path, or is it really just following a lot of the best practices that you see in other industry categories?
So I think it's forging its own path, but based on unprecedented access to transaction level data, right? In the sense that for mainstream industries, it's not really realistic to go and get all of the point of sale, all of the transaction data, and be able to form a really robust opinion about consumer behaviors, because they're all fragmented ecosystems. In the cannabis space, a lot of the technologies have been built using kind of modern best practices. So all the point of sale systems are API driven, for instance. And so there's just access to data at a level of granularity or a higher fidelity than most industries. And then if you also put into place like the macroeconomic tailwinds of just new markets opening up and the size of investments that are going into the space, these brands and advertisers are really coming out with best-in-class approaches as well. They're putting in place marketing heads that come from mainstream CPG companies and understand how really to build and get a brand message thriving. And where we see Surfside fitting into that is in helping be the custodian and facilitating that journey, because we have the integrations and the infrastructure that allows you to build that informed decision about the consumer and then model it out as you see fit to realize those goals. So we're seeing like a lot of very advanced marketing strategies, but the wings are clipped because they can't use the Facebook, the Google type approach. But the reality is that even if Facebook were to open up tomorrow, Instagram is still not a viable medium for the messaging, because it doesn't support targeting at a geo level. So you can't ensure that your creative messaging, if you were able to serve it, would be compliant with the individual state regulations. So although like the medium's closed down, it's still not the best fit for us. And that's why we're seeing a lot of clients that we work with really focusing on digital as their primary channel.
Interesting. Certainly within almost every other category that I've had as clients over the years, there's always some kind of a blend between paid media and earned media. And then within the last 5 to 7 years, there's really been more of a blurring of that with, the influencer markets, where the line between paid and earned is a little bit more blurry. And you may not have visibility into it, but within other regulated industries, a lot of those industries have sort of turned to influencer marketing, either just organic influencer marketing or paid influencer marketing, to sort of create an additional channel. Have you been hearing from your clients that that's a direction that they're testing as well, or are they somewhat skittish about that?
I would say that they're probably a little skittish. I don't think there's a great, and this is not like really our area of expertise, but we kind of stay away from advertising. We stay away from advertising on those platforms just because they're labor intensive. You can get shut down, you've got to reboot. And I think that same level of gray area where there's really not a super defined structure and process in order to execute on these type of campaigns, because it could lead to your account being shut down. And that's just not a risk really any large scale or any kind of licensed cannabis brand or retailer really wants to take. No one really wants to jeopardize that. So we tend to see that there's a risk on both sides, though. Even the influencers are getting shut down when they're promoting products. So I think that there is a way that people do it, and that they know that once you get really good at it, you probably understand kind of what's allowable and what's not allowable and how that passes. And we tend to see it kind of like with micro influencers. We'll see someone who is promoting, has 100,000 followers or 10,000 followers and using a few of them. But to Michael's point earlier, when you're using an influencer, an influencer might have 100,000 followers and only 5,000 of them might be in your delivery zone, or might be in states that you are legally selling. So it's that kind of the old methodology where you would say, like, I know I need to be on ESPN because that's where guys are, and I want guys who drive trucks. But ESPN's website population is not just guys who drive trucks. There's males, there's females, there's people who drive all types of cars. And so it's not as targeted as advertising is. And so it's kind of like nowadays you target people rather than inventory sources where your people might be. And so it's just getting a lot more targeted. And I think it's kind of like a step backwards in that regard.
Right. And I would imagine that same issue would apply then to affiliate marketing, because an affiliate would not be excited about promoting something where they can't use their entire geographic footprint, and the brand would be very uninterested in potentially crossing over into states or geographies that they're not licensed in. So you'd have sort of the double whammy there as well.
Yeah, like affiliate marketing there's definitely value to it in certain regard. Like it's really like our experience with it. It's low cost inventory and it's fully commission based. So there's not a lot of disadvantage to a brand or a retailer because they're only paying when it works. But at the same time, it might not be good for your brand quality. because a lot of the times it's discounts. A lot of the times it's your brand and your offers are showing up in places you probably don't want them to show up. And then to your point again, it is kind of out there to a ton of people that might not be relevant. And where we've seen kind of a little bit more success and like in cannabis, what they've been doing is their affiliate marketing programs might be internal, and they're not really affiliate marketing programs. They're like loyalty programs. And so incentivizing people for referrals or for sales, or commissioning their own customers in order to bring new customers in, is definitely a form of affiliate marketing. But I think like it would probably be like closer to like loyalty programs more than anything. And those are the ones that I think that in the space have kind of done a better job at solving for that kind of affiliate marketing play.
Great, thanks. Within other regulated industries, at least most of the bigger ones, like beer and liquor and cigarettes, there are some major power brands. Do you feel like it's evolving to where a few power brands are going to show up within the cannabis space? Are you already getting the sense that there's a few leaders that are going to be sort of the equivalents of the Coors and the Budweisers, but within cannabis?
Yeah, I think it's coming. But today, there's still so much market share and so many new consumers flooding the space that a clear winner, I think, is some ways off. We expect mass consolidation across the market, though. And at the end of the day, the companies that are really building brands with a data-driven, customer-centric mindset are going to win. So it comes down to who's getting the most sophisticated strategy in place to ensure that they've got the right data to really go in and fight these fights, because it's pretty brutal out there if you're trying to start a brand today.
Right. The other thing that's happened more probably within the beer category than some of the other categories is you end up with these sort of niche brands that service a particular audience or have a particular positioning with regards to flavor or flavor profile. And you have microbreweries, maybe a particular dark or a particular IPA or a particular, flavor of Absolute, for example. Do you feel like cannabis consumers similarly will gravitate towards particular, I don't really call it flavors necessarily, but particular differentiators in the product, which will have the ability to create these sort of micro brands, which are niche and sort of position a little bit differently within the category?
Here's the difference between cannabis and liquor is that cannabis can be consumed multiple ways, right? And so if you look at it as a CPG, it's not cereal because it's breakfast. You know what I'm saying? You can have so many different types of breakfast. You have your bars, you have your cereals, you have your oatmeals, you've got your egg, you've got your bacon. That's kind of what cannabis is, where it's not just one product category and one thing, it's one whole thing with multiple different ways of consuming and practicing or utilizing it. And so it's a little it's tough to do a comparison like that, because you're going to have winners you're going to have winners in each product category as well, or a number of winners in those product categories.
But we also see that happening today in the market. So a prime example would be Levio, which is one of the THC infused beverages in the New England market. And they initially went to market with 4 SKUs and have since matured that into seasonal offshoots. Right? And it's a matter of constant touch points, ways to get at the forefront of consumer awareness and help drive those decisions. And I think having a local strategy is in the best interest of any modern brand. We understand that consumers have different preferences and different desires. So being able to have a brand that's dynamic and can kind of tailor to those nuances is important. It's just part of being a modern brand today.
And in their case, how are they differentiating the SKUs? So what's the value proposition for selecting one SKU over the other in their case? I guess it's a beverage, so is it flavor?
Yeah, well, it's all about driving new sales. So in the cannabis space, it can be kind of more experiential. So there's a lot around sort of lift or euphoric or relaxing, those types of things. without obviously tying it to any direct health benefits. But the same things that you see in kind of mainstream marketing of liquor products, right? There's a seasonal line, or Dunkin' Donuts does it to a ridiculous extent, where, you know, a month before Halloween, they're out with the pumpkin spice latte, and then summer comes and it hits and it hits. And understanding these breakpoints where you can change messaging and change SKUs to give a consumer another reason to purchase your product is just the way that we keep moving people through the cycle.
Great. So final question. So what has you excited about the future of the industry? Is there anything, either a channel or just is it continued leniency with it from a regulatory perspective? Like, what's got you guys super jazzed about the future of the cannabis industry and marketing the products in particular?
I think that like consolidation definitely is exciting to a certain degree, right? You know, from a marketing standpoint, it makes our lives a lot easier when there is a consistent kind of regulatory practice around the laws, the regulation, the targeting, the data privacy. But then when you talk about also consolidation on the tech side, it means less integrations, communicate, like setting up spec that that works with different, like the same platform is now available across 3,000 dispensaries rather than having to work with 20 point of sale systems across 100 dispensaries a piece. And so there's definitely benefits to doing better partnerships with a smaller group of software. Because like for us as a provider, we're platform agnostic. So being able to support all the different parts of the ecosystem, it becomes difficult as more and more properties and more platforms pop up. But then as winners start to declare themselves, not only in, you know, the brands and the retailers, but on the software and the technology side, people can begin to see those products now evolve and together rather than compete against each other. And that is only going to provide an upside for the industry. Obviously, legalization also will help with that as well, to make things a lot more easy as far as across the board for the industry.
Great. Do you think people's primary loyalties are to a specific brand or to a dispensary?
I think that we see that it's definitely things are dispensary focused right now. Like when you look at the market, there's, let's call it 240 million legal age consumers in the US. And the amount of them that are loyal, mature cannabis consumers is a small fraction of that. And so, or the minority. And those are the ones that might have brand loyalties and they're more consistent with their purchasing. And we tend to see them explore other product categories. And so like as the consumer gets more and more mature, they start to form loyalties and they form loyalties to brands. And then they're consistently purchasing those brands and those products and within those product categories. But again, there is a convenience factor to all this, you know, as far as what's my closest dispensary, is there delivery, you know, and people aren't necessarily driving massive amounts of distance in order to go get a brand that they love if it's not stocked in their store. And so as of right now, convenience wins, and which that definitely lends itself to loyalty to the dispensary right now, because it's on your way home from work, it's the closest store to your house, or it's the delivery partner that delivers to you.
Right. Great. Well, thanks so much for giving me a snapshot into an industry I'm not as familiar with. So appreciate you sharing with myself and the rest of the eMarketing Association viewers what's going on in cannabis marketing. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.